What a weird game of football that was, and all in all, just left me with a very unsatisfied feeling. Hello everybody, it's Ian here once again from OUFC Fan View, and it's time for another review of another Oxford United game. Today, it was time for the Thames Valley Derby. The first one in, well, I probably should have looked up before this video, but I didn't, I'm sorry. So it's been a long time. Long story short, is Oxford versus Reading. After the debacle of last weekend's game to Bristol Rovers, it's been a decent week for Oxford United. It got a spirited fight back and good performance in the 2-2 draw against Portsmouth. You can see my review of that video in the corner. And a decent transfer window as well, with some definite improvements to the squad. And it left me with some renewed optimism going into this derby game. But it was a strange game of football, as I said, and in the end, Oxford once again, like we did against Portsmouth, we throw away a lead in this game and we end up with a draw. It finished Oxford United 1, Reading 1. So one was even in the Thames Valley Derby, and we will go over everything in the game, starting with the team news, then I'll do a match review, and then I'll give my final thoughts for both sides. You can jump to any point of the video if you like and go through that by using the chapters feature. There's timestamps on the video and down below. But if you do that, the very least you can do is hit that like button, because that does help me out so much on these videos. And if you do like the content, then consider subscribing. And I feel like there's more talking points for off the field activities than what happened on the pitch during the 90 minutes. But let's start with this Oxford United team news. Some good news, some bad news. Let's start with the bad. And the bad news was Simon Eastwood was in goal. Jamie Cumming, who came off at half-time during that Portsmouth game, not fit enough to play, should be back for the Blackpool game, along with a host of other players. But it does mean Eastwood starts in goal. That does have me a little bit worried. I've been a bit sceptical of Eastwood's performance. He does look like he is degrading quite significantly as a goalkeeper. But also there is another change as well. Stefan Negru is playing right back, and that's not the greatest news. It's not really a slight on Negru, who is a fine young defender, but he is again a square peg in a round hole at right back, and it's because Finn Stevens came off injured against Portsmouth in the first half. But his replacement, Ossian Smith, is also bloody injured and out of this game as well. I'll talk a bit more about the injuries in my final thoughts at the end of the video, because it gets a little bit beyond the joke at times. But the rest of the Oxford side is the same from that team that did quite well in that game against Portsmouth. And there's also more teeth and more bite to the Oxford United bench, with the deadline day signings of Owen Dale and Jay Matete joining the ranks on the bench. And a little shout out to 17-year-old goalkeeper Monty Marriott, who is on the bench for the U's. Let's move on to Reading now, and quite rightly so. All the attention for Reading this season has been on the stranglehold and the disgusting way that Dai Yongge is running this football club seemingly into the ground, and worryingly close for Reading fans. They are to going out of business, and I just hope that is not the case for you Reading fans in there. And in the face of that, in the face of the points deductions, in the face of all the restrictions that is on the football club by the EFL and by Dai Yongge, Ruben Sellers is actually doing a very admirable job of trying to keep the Royals in the league. They started the day in 21st place, 3 points from safety, but they are on a very decent run, which has seen them only lose 2 games in the last 10. Deadline day came and went for Reading, and it was more about trying to keep players than anybody coming in. There was a predicted fire sale, which did not happen, and the likes of Harvey Niz, Aziz, Wing and Sam Smith, who was always a thorn in this Oxford side, did not leave the club and started in this game today, which just shows you this Reading side has got plenty of quality, and those 1,500 travelling Reading fans had reason to be confident in this one. Let's move on to the game then, and yeah, there was very good commitment in this game from both sides. It meant that the game was quite scrappy at times. It meant there were a lot of mistakes, and it meant that there was a real dearth of goal scoring opportunities. But a good start from Oxford in the first 10 minutes. They played with a good tempo. They really tried to get into Reading, create some problems, create some chances. Just could not create a goal scoring opportunity. 13 minutes on the clock was when Oxford had their first half, well, was better than a half chance. It just came down to decision making. Rodriguez players won the ball high. Tyler Goodrum was able to charge towards goal on the right-hand side. He was caught in two minds about whether to shoot or whether to square the ball to Harris, and in the end Tyler on Tyler came across and did a very good job of clearing the danger. But then Reading started to come into the game a lot more, and the chances came a lot from Oxford overcommitting at times, and Reading were able to kind of nip through the press and then create some dangerous overloads, and their first chance came from a fine, real sweeping move up the pitch on the left-hand side, Oxford's right, and they worked a chance to Wing on the edge of the box, and he shot just wide. It was Wing again 2 minutes later who was shooting from the edge of the box, but this time it was an attack down the other side, Aziz causing problems. Wing shot into a crowded penalty area, and Oxford were able to smuggle it away. And as I said, not a lot really happening. The game was flying by. As a fan of either side, you were fully committed and invested because the effort was being put in by the players. If you were neutral, you'd be struggling to see the quality in it. But like we've seen in many times in Oxford games this season, not much is really happening, and then somehow Oxford take the lead. And on 32 minutes, they did find their groove. Stefan Negru started to move for a brilliant ball. It was probably Reading overcommitting this time, and it meant Tyler Bure got a little space down that right-hand side, and he was able to find a cross right the way across the penalty area to Cameron Brannigan, who made great ground to get onto it. Heavy touch from Brannigan, but he was able to keep the ball in, squared it across goal. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it went all the way through to Mark Harris, who was unmarked at the back post, who just got away from the defender and was able to tap it into the goal. Oxford 1-0 up. Mark Harris scores again. Question marks about whether it was offside. I'm not sure Reading really appealed it too much, but if you're looking on the freeze frame, it's tight. Is it a square pass from Brannigan? Is Harris just level with the defender when the ball was played? Either way, doesn't matter. Oxford are winning. And that was really it for the first half. There was no real chances from Reading after that, and Oxford went in 1-0 up at half-time. As I said, fully committed from both sides. That midfield battle was really key, and you felt that was where Reading was getting the most joy, is when they could get Oxford to overcommit and just pick their pocket and get the ball through to their attacking players. Mainly Mukeru and Nibs on that left-hand side. Nibs and Wing so good at finding little pockets of space, but they didn't test Simon Eastwood at all in the Oxford United goal. But the overcommitting from Oxford was a risk-reward tactic, because we did get joy from it as well, and there were times we did pick Reading's pocket and win the ball back early and just didn't make the right decisions or didn't move the ball fast enough to get the ball and create really good goal-scoring opportunities of our own, other than the one that obviously went in. Slender lead for Oxford United at half-time. So far, so good, but a long way to go. The second half just picked up where the first half left off, really. Not many chances, both sides struggling to create a lot of pressure. There was a little bit of early pressure from Reading. Sam Smith causing problems up top, so good at holding the ball up, and he forced an early corner, which Eastwood did well to deal with when it came over. Some really good silky skill from Tyler Bure. He worked his way into the penalty area, got to the byline, floated a lovely ball over the top, and you're just hoping that like Greg Lee or Goodrum's not really going to get the end of it, or Harris or Rodriguez were going to get there and nod it in, but Reading skipper Yeardham got one that important header and got it away. But the game once again was very scrappy, not a lot happening, both sides struggling to create chances, and this was pretty alright for Oxford. You just didn't really feel much of a threat from Reading. Owen Dale came on for his debut on 71 minutes, and his first contribution was he won a free kick in a dangerous area, and it forced, in the end, Reading cleared the first wave of attacks from the free kick, but Marcus McGuane had a shot on the edge of the box, but it was easy for Button to save. So I go back to saying that 1-0 lead is a slender lead, and it just, as I said, nothing in the game, but little things like this could happen at any point. Sam Smith just wins a knockdown from a long ball forward. I think he just either chested it or headed it off, and all of a sudden there was a big gap for Femi Aziz to run into, and it looked like he could just gallop forward towards goal, but Oxford skipper came across. Elliot Moore cleared the danger, was a warning sign, but Oxford did not heed that warning, because just a minute later Reading got that equaliser. Credit to Sellers, he made changes, and those changes made the difference. It started with Stefan Negru, probably about the only thing he did wrong in the game. He gave the ball away cheaply in Oxford's half, and then could not get back to make the challenge to stop the attack. It was a Batcherman who won the ball for him, and he made great ground down the left-hand side, the Oxford United right. He got into the penalty area. He was able to put a dangerous ball across the goal, much like Brandon Flanagan's ball for Harris. This was a very similar ball to that. Cairon Brown just could not let it go. He couldn't do much with it, and he ends up turning the ball into his own net. Own goal brings Reading level. And now all of a sudden you're worried that this might end from a seemingly comfortable winning position where Oxford might end up losing it, because I felt Reading did look the stronger side for like the next 10 minutes after that, and certainly as this game was coming towards an end. But Oxford still had hope on the break. Rodriguez smashed an effort from a good counter-attack. It was a really well-hit shot. Unfortunately for Oxford, it was straight at Button. He was able to parry it away. Maybe I'm being a bit critical, but O'Donker on his heels a little bit, not sniffing around for that potential rebound. And what would an Oxford game be without an injury? We hadn't had one in the 90 minutes. We nearly got one right at the end. He still might be injured for this, but Stefan Negru looked like he might have dislocated his shoulder. Maybe they popped it back in and he finished the game. Credit to Negru for finishing the game, but this game finished all square. And I think both sets of fans are just not really know how to take it at the moment. It feels very underwhelming. Reading will be happy that they came back into it from a losing position to claim a point. But both sides didn't show a lot of quality. So probably overall, a point is fair. So that brings me to my final thoughts. And let's start with Reading. And let's take aside all petty rivalries and derogatory chants and derogatory comments aimed at both sets of fans. Reading's plight is much more important than what actually happens on the field, and Reading fans out there, I fully sympathise with what you're going through. It's a horrible situation. You feel a bit helpless in what you can do to try and get this guy out of your football club so you can actually move forward and hopefully try and get back to where you were for many years as a championship club. It's an awful situation for you. Your fans travelled in great number today, as you would expect, and you sung your hearts out and you put in a very spirited performance. I would say there was a lack of quality for both sides today, but Reading have been very hard to beat of late, and credit to Sellers. He made some great changes in that second half and he did enough to earn that draw overall. I think you've got should be confident that you've still got enough, as long as there's no more points deductions or anything like that, which is out of your control. But on the field, with the players you've got, I think you should be confident that you've got enough to stay up this season. That those forward players are very good for League One levels. Wing and Nibs are so good at finding little pockets of space. Sam Smith is such a pain in the arse for defenders to deal with. He's a handful up there. And then you've got Aziz as well, very lively player. I don't think we saw the best of him today, but he is certainly a lively player. And just very solid, very organised. I don't think there was too many problems with this Reading side, really. It might be that Oxford are just not that good. so maybe it's not a good sample size for me to see. But Oxford have had 2 games against Reading this season, and both of them Reading have been pretty tough to beat and come back from losing positions in either of them. And yeah, we're a rival club. It's not our main derby. Obviously Swindon is, but Reading is still a pretty big derby for Oxford United. And I would just like to know your thoughts on what's going on with the football club, first and foremost, and secondly, what you thought of today's game, whether you think you can stay up this season, and what is the future, what your hopes are, if there's any resolution to this Dai Yongge situation. And if you want to put derogatory comments and stupid things like that down in the chat, that's fine. In the comments, that's absolutely fine. But I'd rather you just give serious answers, because I generally want to know, because it is interesting to me. I don't want Reading Football Club to go out of business. I don't have any joy in that, despite what many Oxford fans put on social media. I'm sure I am one of many that doesn't share in wanting Reading to go out of business. And I do wish you good luck for the rest of the season. And that brings me on to Oxford United. And what can you say? Just another game where we've dropped points at home from winning position. You feel like we should have held on to victory against Portsmouth, but you give them credit for Oxford credit for coming back into it. But this one today, from a position of winning 1-0, we really should have been able to drive forward, get that second goal and kill this game off. And we really didn't, and really we didn't look like doing it. And that's the biggest disappointment thing for me, is there wasn't enough sustained pressure on that Reading goal in either half, really. And didn't really look like creating much, either from set pieces or open play. I don't think Oxford played that badly today, and I certainly respect the fully committed effort that Oxford put in. Those players put a shift in today. Players like Cairon Brown Own was magnificent today in midfield, won so many battles. I thought Greg Lee was superb in defence today, and I thought Negru did well as well. He just made a little mistake for the game. You know, Cairon Brown, what can you really do? Eastwood didn't have much to do in the game at all. They did a very good job of shielding Eastwood from any saves at all. I thought the front players were lively, but just weren't able to create chances, weren't able to work button in the Reading goal enough, and that was my biggest disappointment today. I'm encouraged what I see from Bure. I'm encouraged what I've seen from Dale. I would have liked to have seen Matete come on a little bit earlier. I think he's got a good work rate, and that makes the side play at a quicker tempo, and I think we could have maybe done with that maybe pretty soon after Reading scored that equaliser, maybe even just before, but maybe his fitness is in question. But all in all, this does very little to make any of us feel that we're going to be serious promotion contenders, but there are mitigating circumstances to that which might change things, because this month is a big month and there's plenty of winnable home games in there, plenty of winnable games, but we've got to start winning them. That starts with Blackpool next weekend, and the Blackpool, what we've been promised now from the club, and is that Blackpool is going to be when we start to see these players returning from injury. We should see Will Goodwin for the first time. We should see Murphy return, who was only supposed to be out with a slight knock in the middle of December, but now we haven't seen him for nearly 2 months. We should see Bodin return to the lineup. We should see Jamie Cumming return to the lineup. We might even see, I don't think we'll see Finn Stevens, but we should see Sam Long return to the lineup as well. So that does mean Oxford will be very much strengthened for this Blackpool game. We've got the likes of Dale in now. We've got the likes of Matete. Bure's got some games under his belt. So the excuses aren't going to be there for Buckingham in terms of the injuries anymore. And we need to start winning games. We need to start creating more goal scoring opportunities, and we need to start putting our foot down in this promotion race and getting on a good run, because this month is bloody important. And I think by the end of February it will be very clear whether Oxford are in a playoff race, in a promotion race, or not. But let me know your thoughts down below, Oxford United fans, like you always do. I've been shite with doing comments lately. I didn't do any for the Portsmouth game. I will try and get to them tomorrow. I will try and get that all cleared, that backlog cleared. So I'm sorry if I haven't responded to any of you on that one. But please do give your comments, because I always like to know your thoughts. There's my regulars out there that comment on every video, and I really appreciate it. I guess we didn't lose, so we should be thankful for that, but that just leaves a very unsatisfactory taste in the mouth. But we'll go again, a week off, a week to prepare, hopefully get a few players back, and we can light up Blackpool, pun intended. I'll see you next week for another review. Thanks for watching.